Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Trust Your Glitter podcast. This is Christy. I'm here to do some Sagittarius full moon updates because I feel like my last podcast was jam-packed with way too many transits and aspects, and I want to kind of really just deeply focus on the full moon herself, because this week has it's almost like throwing pins at the wall with everything going on at once. And because it's Gemini season, there's so much information. I want to also just put the full moon on spotlight. I saw her last night while I was walking the dog, and I was like, you're so beautiful and bright, and I just want to admire the full moon right now. So I picked some tarot cards this morning, and I thought it was my personal reading. But when I went down to write, I sat down to write in the morning for morning pages to analyze these cards. They actually wanted to be for everybody. So I'm sharing this reading. It's collective energy tarot cards from none other than the Crystal Unicorn Tarot deck, given to me by my friend Lady of the Lamps. So I want to shout out Kristen Belich for these beautiful cards. These are my go-to tarot cards. Nothing more Sagittarian than some unicorns. So the first card that I have actually chose was last night before I went to bed. I chose the Judgment card. Now this is a major arcana card, and to me this represents the fact that we have Pluto retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. And often I want to look at this as maybe like Archangel Gabriel, who rules communications, who's overseeing us on this Pluto journey as we kind of recalibrate collectively. We're kind of trying to all figure it out together. And that means soul tribes right now are trying to figure it out within the soul tribes. So, with Pluto and Aquarius, it's still kind of creating the universal divine masculine, divine feminine, twin flame sort of thing, where everything's trying to find its way. And the sacred feminine and masculine are kind of at odds, and we're seeing that around the world. But I also want to say, in our lives, we might have this situation as well, where it's just like we're kind of rising up to this collective consciousness, which is above the divine masculine and feminine. It's collective energy, where we all come together and align. With the Judgment card here, we have these gorgeous trines, this harmonious energy to the sun in Gemini, and this is considered what's called a sextile to the full moon. Now, let me just readjust. So the full moon herself is not exactly square. She's in a very, very wide square. And I'm not even going to call it a square. Let's just kind of acknowledge Saturn is in Pisces, and I saw somebody make a TikTok about how this is a square to Saturn, and I would argue no. But I do want to acknowledge that Saturn is in Pisces, so by signs, we do have squares, but there is not a square to Saturn. Like, it's not a direct square. So I want to acknowledge that, because I think the Judgment card is more aligned with the fact that we are evolving consciously. We're noting that no matter what country we're in, where we're at on the world, who, this, that, and the other, we're all connected. So that is the main, I want to say maybe the core card of this reading, that we're all connected. But the first card out this morning was the Ace of Swords in reverse. And so when I pull out cards in reverse, to me, this is like where the work needs to be done. And the work in general needs to be done with new beginnings regarding our ability to communicate. Swords are mental cards, air sign related. We are in Gemini season, which is air sign related. This full moon herself is in a fire sign of Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, associated with the 9th house of higher learning, spiritual expansion. the philosopher, the one who goes out into nature, the one who's maybe church is nature church. So in this way, this full moon herself is asking us to go out into nature and to observe, to take that vantage point and say, I'm a being, judgment position, where the angels or the higher being is overseeing us minions on this planet, overseeing all the energy, and we're just kind of experiencing these planets, we're experiencing these connections. So this Ace of Swords invites us. It's in reverse, so it's not ready yet. It invites us, and I would say that this full moon opening up Gemini season is inviting us to explore this wider conversation, this more philosophical approach towards old things. Like, think about this Joe Rogan just interviewed Terrence Howard, and he's got his own stuff, his own shit in the world. All these powerful men do. But I would say that it's an interesting interview to really kind of contemplate. I listened to half of the interview and I stopped to mentally digest it. I listened through a part where he was talking about models of the universe, specifically looking at the planet Saturn. And, this is my life practice, is to teach others about the planet Saturn, and to destigmatize the energy of Saturn as a planet. So I wanted to hear what he had to say about Saturn. And, from what I've gathered information-wise, he's looking at him and his, those he works with, they're looking at models of Saturn, where from what I've gathered information-wise, my interpretation might be off, and I might be, is they're looking at the frequency of these elements in the universe, and how these elements that hold frequency act outward over these physical bodies that were created through frequency. At least that's how I interpreted it, as opposed to, molecules, core matter from the inside expanding outward, although he does relate to the forces of expansion and contraction. And so if we look at that from an astrological perspective, in astrology we have something called harmonic astrology, which is related to the frequency, the sounds. Every planet, Mercury, Venus, even Miss Earth, Gaia herself, Jupiter, Neptune, all of the planets have their own sound, their own frequency. And all of us have what's called the harmonic charts. I was going to say 12 and 9 at the same time, but then that got dyslexic right there. So we each have the harmonic planets. So if we think of it as the scales, for example, anybody who's ever played a musical instrument, we think of the scales when we have to practice our scales. And I'm thinking at it from a perspective of on a piano. We all start at our kind of base point is middle C, and we work up and down from that. And the way that I see that is we're looking at it from that perspective. So it's an interesting interview. I definitely recommend it. I've been thinking about it. I stopped at the models of Saturn to really kind of mentally think about how it applies to the fact that right now we're in expansion mode with this full moon. She's Jupiterian. And on my last podcast, I didn't do the astrology 101 of the full moon. I did more of a broader perspective of the week, how I'm feeling it intuitively when it comes to world politics. But if we look at it from a perspective of, this Jupiterian full moon, and wants us to expand our mindset, wants us to look at the fact that maybe what we were taught in school has nothing to do with what we're actually here to learn, here to experience. So I pulled out, I don't remember the rest of the order, but I have the full card on the table. And the full card is Sagittarian's major arcana in the tarot card deck, jumping into the unknown, jumping into exploring, going on the journey, traveling, understanding that maybe you have to review with Pluto retrograde your travels of the past and how they created where you are today. Whether it's like literally just traveling on this planet and reviewing your life from birth till now, or like actual trips and journeys that you are going on or have gone on and how they've affected you and what did you pack, what did you bring along, what was in your pack, what do you need to release? You know, do you need to throw away that old shirt? Do you need to throw away that old way of being, that old mindset? That's what a full moon is here to like really highlight for all of us. And then I have the Page of Swords, which is also kind of nice with that Ace of Swords, because it is actually taking the spiritual to the physical and saying, pen to paper, you know, write it out. This is something that you can, swords again are mental, but they're also mind to paper, mind to writing those words down. Hearing yourself speak into your recorder, hearing yourself say it out loud. This is something that you speak into existence. I want to do blank. I need to do blank. I am blank. I am expanding blank. This is a very positive, optimistic energy in general. Now looking at the greater world, listen to the last episode where I tie all of the stuff together. But on a personal level, if you're doing manifestation work, if you're doing moon ritual work, if you're doing any sort of goddess worship work with the full moon, she's a great Page of Swords to have, because if you're doing altar work, this is when you write the letter to yourself, place it to the moon, let the moon shine on it, and let her read it for you and bring back your manifestations to you. This is something that we've been working on since late November, early December of 2023. We're bringing it around. We're releasing the fear around it, because ultimately full moons want to release fear. You know, that's why we're more anxious around full moons. That's why things get a little bit more chaotic around full moons, because it's this pent-up energy that we're all feeling. We're just animals on this planet experiencing these variables. So then I have the Hermit card, which is interesting with the full card. So the Hermit card is the major arcana, generally represented by the sign Virgo. But I feel this as saying you were independent on this journey. You know, you're here with your lantern on top of the mountain, assessing the territory. You went through the darkness. You're still in the darkness a little bit, but shining that light, the bonfire of Sagittarius' light, the centaur who wants to help others, who wants to seek out this great knowledge and share it. It's not something that's meant to be kept a secret, you know. And one of the things I wrote in my blog today was like, you have to go through the sign. In order to get to the moon in Sagittarius, you have to go through the Scorpio transit. You have to go through the trenches in order to find the light again. Sagittarius brings us this idea that it's like, okay, we have all of this ability, this capability to really be great humanitarians in this world, but we have to experience the pain in order to really apply it. There's no other way to do that. You can't conceptualize pain. It's like that book, The Giver. There's a book called The Giver where basically it's the shaman who they're living in this quote-unquote utopian society, but really it's just this dystopian society, and the shaman passes the gift on to basically the next chosen one, and the chosen one, you know, feels, for example, sunburn for the first time, and it's very painful, and he holds the knowledge of the sunburn feeling, while everybody else in society is basically in their own like closed off world. Here's this receiver of truth. Where have you been given knowledge that you're asked to share? What realm are you working with? And then the final card, I'll pull another card. I'll do a shuffle on here. Is the Ten of Wands, which was my last card. I do remember that it was the last that I pulled out, and then I stopped shuffling. Ten of Wands is tough in a society that teaches us this hustle culture, you know, and as a tarot card reader, I've been doing tarot cards readings since 2015. When I lived in New York City and I would do parties and I would do readings with this card, of course I would read it from a perspective of like, we've got to hustle, we got to get our time, you know, we've got to do our servitude towards capitalism. And now that I look at the Ten of Wands and I know that my assignment is to teach others about what Saturn and capitalism and Capricorn really is, I'm learning that the expectations of the Ten of Wands also evolves as we evolve. So wands are fire in the tarot deck. 10 are coming to fruition. You're going to the 1 plus 0. So a 10 is technically a new beginning because 1 is starts. 0 is a concept. 0 is a full circle. 1 plus 0 is the algorithm of life, the binary code. So if we look at the 10 of Wands from the perspective of the fact that we are a whole being already, if we look at it from the fact that we've done the gathering work, because the card before the 10 of Wands is the 9 of Wands, and the 9 of Wands is that tough shit. You tried something, it didn't work. You got the job, you got fired. You tried the thing, you lost all, whatever. You went into debt. You went to school, did all the work, you went into debt. It's like kind of the 9 is that ending of cycles. It is Mars energy because 9 is related to the planet Mars. But with a 10 of Wands or a 10 of any of the tarot suite, so 10 of Swords, for example, you know, or the 10 of Cups, 10 of Pentacles. 10 of Cups and 10 of Pentacles are both related to family, being pretty much taken care of, peaceful, financially fruitful, abundant. 10 of Swords and 10 of Wands are basically like, it's not a reward yet, but it's knowing that you've put in a good amount of effort. I kind of see it as like you're on the balance beam and you're right in the middle of it. It can also be like feeling that pressure on your shoulders to succeed. And sometimes when you're doing the work, it might not be the work that you see other people doing online, like getting the numbers, or even like when it comes to finances. It might not be having whatever amount of money, however many zeros you need in your bank account. It could be that you're just simply educating yourself on a daily basis, showing up to morning pages on a daily basis, writing your stuff on a daily basis, going to open mics, producing your shows, showing up to the canvas on a daily basis, continuing to do something where you put yourself out into the world, but it has to be consistent. So that's an interesting card to be the final card in a Sagittarian full moon reading. So let's do a shuffle. This one wants to talk. How interesting. Oh, my deck said one more. Justice. So Justice is Libra's major arcana, but those are the balance scales with the sword, Lady Justice. There's no blinder on her eyes in this card. And in this deck, she has like a jasper crystal with her, which is very much related to root chakra energy. So let me pick one more card. I'm going to tell my deck, okay, they're pretty clear. the Hierophant, which is Taurus, is major arcana. Lots of major arcanas today. So we have a Jupiter sextile in Taurus to Neptune this week, and also Venus. And then Mercury is in Taurus as well. But I want to say that this is about that sacred leader. In certain tarot decks, this is the Pope. But this card is about taking leadership. You have the key to your own authenticity, your own authority. So next to justice, it's like, well, I mean, Sagittarius loves justice. Sagittarius is the judge, oversees the court. I said that in the last episode. Really wants everybody to live in harmony. The highest form of Sagittarius. With Jupiter, so Jupiter's shifting this week from Taurus to Gemini on the 25th. So we still have a couple days with Jupiter and Taurus. So we're going to definitely see some exchange of the key. It's like you're getting the keys. You're getting the downloads that you need in order to go through with whatever your dreams are. There is a passing of time from the Fool through this major arcana. The Fool is 0. But there's experience here. And the Hierophant is 5. When I see the number 5 in numerology, I see the color blue. But I also, when I see the number 5 in numerology, it's not always certain. And what it takes to work with the number 5 is your ability to express your truth, express your voice. Again, the word authenticity, express your authenticity, to be okay with taking the spotlight, to be okay with things constantly evolving. It's interesting, the Hierophant is number 5 for that, representing Taurus, which wants to be like really in its power. So there's vocal power here with this Sagittarius full moon in a way that maybe you haven't felt your voice before. And because Taurus is throat chakra as well as Gemini, isn't it interesting that they share that? I always found it interesting. You know, Taurus is love and Venus, but if we look at the chart, it's throat. Now it could be silent, learning when not to speak and when to speak. That's the trade-off between Taurus and Gemini. Gemini's gonna maybe say one too many things, maybe kind of get into trouble. Same with Sagittarius, putting their foot in the mouth a lot of the time. Making the wrong joke at the wrong time. But although, like, the dark jokes are the best jokes, you gotta admit. But those are the ASMR tarot cards for the Sagittarius full moon. And I hope that you enjoy this full moon. You can find me. I'm doing a lot of experiments online, so you can find me. I'm also on Substack. I'm back on Substack right now. I'm just kind of writing out blogs. I don't ever have a plan when I go into writing a blog. The blog chooses what to be written. I just kind of rewrite it as it goes. So sometimes it's stories. Sometimes it's like I just did a series for your Venus sign. I did a part 1 through part 3 for all 12 zodiac signs. So if you want to find me on Substack, Christy Belich on Substack. Find me on social media, Christy Belich, Trust Your Glitter, and have an amazing full moon ahead.